am I being fulfilled? Am I feeling happy? Am I going to look back on my life and think, oh, I was just sad and miserable, but I was productive? Or am I going to think, I spent my time well. I have 15 minutes for being happy, and then 15 minutes for doing this.
15 minutes for being happy. 15 minutes for being miserable.
Right,
That's called the Pomodoro method.
Pomodoro method.
Wow, this is brilliant.
All my willpower and motivation and energy was just gone. My off time was just like watching YouTube and not like helpful YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, and now I watch YouTube, but I'm not just watching YouTube.
It's helpful YouTube.
It's helpful YouTube.
I swear. I have basically never had a bad sleep schedule until recently, because when I was in like 3rd grade, I would literally wake up at 4:30 in the morning every day.
Yep.
And I would go to bed really early. I went to bed at like 8 p.m.
You're also a main source of inspiration for me, because like
Yeah.
I remember, I don't remember how old I was, but one time you convinced me to wake up at 5:55.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get up before 6.
I would wake you up, and then we had this little tiny tea set, and it was kind of ridiculous. I don't know where we got it.
I think it was from China, but it was a really, really tiny tea set. It could only hold like one sip of tea.
Yeah, and we would make ourselves throat coat tea every morning and just have a plate, and the plate we just put Cheerios on it, and that was our breakfast, and we felt so cool.
Doing that. Cool.
And
it was a transformative experience for me.
Yeah. I don't know how long that lasted, but I always woke up pretty early. And then during the pandemic, I always had like a really good sleep schedule. And this year, we have been transforming like a beautiful butterfly coming out of the cocoon,
exploring different options, let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, I think that there was a lot of things that I also mentioned in this previous podcast, doing the right things for the wrong reasons, and I think there was a lot of like chaos and uncertainty that a lot of people were experiencing during the pandemic, and also all the time, just as humans. And a lot of like how I was dealing with that was, if I have this basis of my routine in the things that I do. And that was very comforting for me to have that certainty, because there's so many things that are out of your control. But I knew I could control when I woke up in the morning and make myself, whatever food that I wanted. And so that was something that I did so consistently was waking up, cleaning, and cooking.
Waking up was something that had always been there.
Yeah.
But even the cleaning and cooking side, you've been doing for years and years now.
Well, maybe like 3 years, which for us is like
years and years. But
we were joking like, oh yeah, how long have you guys been doing the podcast? I was like, it's been 2 decades now.
Okay, but when you're as young as me, a little amount of time can seem like so long, just because you're growing so much.
It does feel like a long time to me, and it was a big like period of my life, was the sort of consistency. And I think it does reflect kind of our own transition to this year, to even be in tune with myself enough to have something else to follow other than my routine. What do you prioritize over the routine, right? Because a routine was so foundational, it's like, I would neglect my bedtime for what? What could possibly be more important than my bed?
And
right?
I think you definitely, like, that was definitely very... Like, I definitely admired that. I was like, that was because whatever my big sister was doing, that was the height of cool for me. So I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think that is generally like very like, good job in terms of what, when people see that, of course, that's a lot harder to do.
I mean, it is
than
tough.
Sleeping in every day.
Right. I mean, it's tough. It's tough in terms of developing that discipline. But then it could also become a crutch, right? Because if you aren't able to handle any amount of uncertainty, like I remember when I was waking up at 4:30 every day, my mom got worried. She was like, "Are you getting enough sleep?" So one day she turned off my alarm, and she's like,
without you knowing.
Yeah, she was like, "I need you to get more sleep," and I was so mad. I was so grumpy that whole morning. I'm like, how could you? I slept like an extra hour or something. It's not like I slept until 9 or something, or like noon. But it was just like, but I was so mad. And I would also get so mad when I when I like miss my alarm, like there are days where if you're like so tired, you turn off your alarm, you go back to sleep, you don't even remember the alarm, and I would just go mad. It would ruin my whole day.
Okay, I know that feeling. That is the feeling I feel when I sleep until 10.
Right? Yeah,
you're just dropping like, in your stomach, the disappointment in yourself.
But yeah, and I think
feel all the shame and every single bad memory you ever felt just comes flooding in. Right. You don't know what life is for anymore.
It's just, who am I? What creature wakes up at 10?
What animal have I become? So undisciplined.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what was kind of a transition, because it's a difference between like being able, like, that's why I say it could become a crutch. It's like you literally cannot handle any variance, and that's when it's like, okay, maybe this isn't really healthy or natural, you know, because it's one thing if you like get in a routine of waking up at a certain time and then you're just like naturally just doing that, and there's plenty of times in which like I would wake up like 5 minutes before my alarm because I was just so used to that, and versus like, you know, obviously this is helping me maintain some kind of certainty, not because it's like, you know, I'm just balancing the priorities in my life and I can, you know, see this in a not like kind of warped way of like how it's influencing me. And so I think that I
don't know how much I can relate to your experience around that. I never really got to that point. For me, the shame was coming from shame.
Well, like a lot of it was also by example.
Yeah, it was your example.
You would say, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do because of the example, and then if you fell short, then it's like, I'm a horrible person.
But that's a me thing.
I don't think it's a you thing, because I think what it is it's trying to establish a system of priorities that can account for all these things. And that's what I was being able to balance a lot more, was in some cases we were having really important family conversations and breakthroughs, or I'm engaging with somebody that's really important to me and they're going through a struggle, and so I'm going to stay up late talking to them into the night because I can see this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Right. I'm not going to be just like, oh, you can just handle your problems alone while I go sleep because it's my bedtime. Right. You know, it's just, that's obviously that's just not the right way to handle that sort of situation. Right?
And when I am doing some really important activities that just needing to watch one more show of Liv and Maddie, that's something that is a really big priority in my life. And so it is worth sacrificing.
Liv and Maddie gonna watch itself while you're sleeping? Like, how could you? I mean, there's also that sort of thing in terms of like, well, I think that there's also something too. I was also like, you know, I was like rewatching Inside and that sort of stuff, and I would stay up late because I was like, when I was just rewatching, but I also felt like that was also really important because you know, there was something to being able to just explore, you know, what is it that I really care about, and what is it that, you know, in terms of also like we were like kind of crazy in terms of how much we were like working on a lot of stuff when it came to like, you know, we were doing like demo days that were like 5 hours long, like 5-hour live streams, and I was like doing a ton of different projects, and it was all because I was really excited. But at a certain point, but that was like a phase of my life. Right. And so to try to explore a new phase of my life, you know, it had to kind of look like, what is it that's going to be able to help me like understand myself and understand, and that was something that, you know, those sorts of things sparked a lot of inspiration for the kinds of songs that we started writing. And that I think that it's hard to know how to value these things, and of course there's something to, you know, exploring myself and then just like, no, seriously, I should not have watched that last show, you know, like I should have just gone to bed, right?
Well, I feel completely justified staying up late playing chess on Duolingo on my phone. Completely justified.
You were working on your brain.
We do not know the potential. In 10 years in the future, I might be a world renowned chess champion.
Yeah.
We have no idea.
Don't know. Well, I mean, I think that it is tough because it's funny because we were talking about I was talking with my dad about like how in Elden Ring he was like thinking of like, oh, I'm trying to defeat this boss and like let's find these ways to hack it. And then it's like a certain point like, oh no, we're working on our problem solving skills. And someone comes up, hey, what are you doing? No, I'm just working on my problem solving skills. Okay, I'll be up in a bit. You know, it's like, you know, but that's not like the main reason why you're doing it. And there's a big difference between justifying and rationalizing after the fact versus like, hey, no, like, you know, I was in the middle of Burnout inside and I'm like feeling really inspired. Yeah. And if I stop it and start it the next night, then like part of that will be lost because it's like an experience of watching through the whole thing, right? And then so there's like different things, and it's so hard to know how to value each and every one of those, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of what,
for me, I've always valued the exploration and entertainment.
Right.
Entertainment should not be in there, but I have valued that side of it a lot.
No, because here's the thing that I think is difficult for people to adapt to is that I consider
feeling happy an achievement.
It is though. That's what I feel like is missing from people's understanding is that we think of these things like, you know, music or art or like movies and those sorts of things, and you think that because that's entertainment, that's not valuable, when it's like the entertainment industry is so huge, billions and billions of dollars worth of, you know, an annualized, like, you know, profits from these industries that are humongous. The gaming industry, the film industry. Yeah. It's like there's so much time and effort being put into entertaining people, and we spend so much of our lives being entertained, whatever that's supposed to mean. Yeah. And it does matter, and it does impact us, and it does have value, obviously, of course. Yeah. Right. But that's like, but being able to know like how exactly do you place that, because
and also like what things are passive stimulation versus actually like helping you feel grounded and wholesome and happy. Like the chess on Duolingo, I feel like was helping me. Like I was learning strategic thinking. Right. But when I started venturing into music Duolingo and I was playing hot cross buns on my phone, it's funny because
they have a little beat track in the background for hot cross, just like and then hot cross buns, and then we're just there like. Our music skills are like more than that. You know?
Like I'm not learning anything here. I'm just seeing the like flashy, pretty colors on my phone. And I'm like, hot cross buns, let's go.
Right. But even that, it could be confusing because you could also be thinking Duolingo is like is gamifying these sorts of things.
That's an education app.
It's more that you're learning from Duolingo in terms of how they make something like playing hot cross buns so stimulating, right? And so there's even that. So it's really hard to know how these different things sort of add value and how you can like prioritize these sorts of things, because also like our family has spent a lot of time like watching certain shows and movies this year that were really, really educational in terms of informing like one, seeing the most watched shows and movies tells you a lot about the state of humanity and where we're at. What is it that people are watching? What is actually, you know, what's resonating with people in the state of mind that they're
like
in.
Watching K-pop Demon Hunters. Like I was talking to one of my friends and I asked her if she watched K-pop Demon Hunters and she's like, no, I don't have time for movies, you know? Right. But then I was like, but this isn't just a movie.
This isn't just a movie? Okay.
Well, seriously, like this is like showing like, okay, what is a huge amount of, you know, it's like a big chunk of humanity and like what kids these days
and our lived experience
and what, you know, what are people resonating with at this moment, and like, you know, that's a big deal.
But it also depends on how you're approaching it, because we're also approaching it with very intentionally, we know this is like the most watched film on Netflix, right? We know how much of an impact it's having, and so we're accounting for that in our viewing experience, whereas there's plenty of people who will just be like, oh, K-pop Demon Hunter, click, and then they're just watching it, and then they're not thinking about those things and not drawing those connections. Right. and maybe for them it's serving a different purpose of like, you know, maybe they just I don't know, maybe they just really needed to like wind down after a long day, and they just needed something to be like, oh, this is ridiculous and funny. And maybe it still is adding value to them in a certain way, right? But I think that being able to kind of going back to the sort of routine sort of aspect of it is that I think that a lot of our sort of understanding of routine comes from a very like contrived and sort of fixed understanding of how that's sort of supposed to fit in, right? If it's like, oh, I need to wake up at this certain time because I need to go to school or I need to go to work. But do you actually have a really good framework for understanding how to make those decisions if that changes, right? If I have a different way of approaching my life, would this understanding of how I'm supposed to go about doing these things every day change, right? And that's part of what I'm seeing is that you kind of, if you go through kind of like a regime change in your life, and then the sorts of like systems that you might have built up for yourself break, and then your understanding of when should I go to bed? When should I wake up? Like, how do I choose what I do, like when to eat and like what to eat and those sorts of things. That's a lot of what for us has been extremely disrupted this year, because our whole worldview and the way that we understand ourselves, the way that we understand the world and what we're trying to do has gone through a massive change. Yeah. Right. And so then I used to be so consistent with like meal planning and grocery shopping. And now I was like, oh yeah, we went to that Chinese restaurant and then I just ate half a bag of chocolate chips. And that's yesterday. That was probably not good.
Right? They were dark chocolate chips. They were healthy.
They were extremely nutritious.
Yeah. You are getting a lot of. Let's just say they're healthy. You just yep.
I mean, and it's something where it's like there are some things where I was like so routine based that before I would eat during meal times even if I wasn't hungry, and then I wouldn't eat outside of meal times even if I was hungry, because I was just so like clockwork, like this is what I'm gonna do, and you didn't want to disrupt my whole system.
But we are human beings.
Yes, we are.
We like to explore and do
and
other
that
stuff.
Doesn't mean I should necessarily have explored all those chocolate chips.
It doesn't necessarily mean you want to eat half a bag of chocolate chips for dinner, but it just means that
well, I think it means that there are certain things that I was exploring in terms of because it is hard, like that is a big problem in today's world, which is how do you regulate yourself in a world of abundance of extremely appealing food, right? That is a problem.
I think the discipline has to come first.
And the discipline definitely does have to come first, which it did come first for me, which is I was so disciplined and regimented, but also not in a way that was like, hey, like if you're hungry, you should go have some food, right? And
maybe it doesn't have to be chocolate chips.
But probably should have had a more healthy choice. But it's like, but it's being able to, see, and then there's also something in terms of convenience, just like if I'm helping a friend, and then I stay up later, then there's also something like maybe I'm doing a lot of other things. I don't have time to cook a big healthy meal, and so I'm going to try to grab something more convenient, right? And so there's something there too in terms of just knowing how to balance these things. And I think that it's you see this a lot in terms of a lot of different problems, where oftentimes people will come from one extreme angle and then go to the other extreme and then kind of find something in between. And it's often something where I don't know if I really went to the opposite extreme in terms of like my diet. Like I was still eating like normal food. Sometimes people will be like, all I had today was a bucket of ice cream, and just like you probably should do that. You know,
exactly.
But
like you got to work other things in with the chocolate chips, like, right? Have some tomatoes or have some like meat or protein. Yeah, but also like some people will be like, okay, no carbs, only protein and broccoli. Right. And this is like what we're going to do. This is how we be healthy. Yeah. But like, I feel like I like to eat bread. And I think bread is tasty. Yes. And I think it's also like, I feel like happiness is something
bread.
Happiness is bread.
No.
But like I was saying, like happiness, I consider that an achievement.
Right.
I don't know if that's good, but I feel like happiness should be like counted into the equation.
I think happiness, if you have the right time horizon, happiness definitely is like, of course, right? Yeah. And so I think that part of our modern like understanding can get caught up in, okay, well, of course, I need to be responsible and I need to be successful and I need all these things. But that's kind of like, and then the whole sort of thing, and then happiness just gets put off and not integrated into those things, which is why we have this whole system of you got to work and do all this stuff and then you retire and then you can be happy. But it's like, you know, ideally we have something better than that. And I think it's kind of indicative of like, okay, yeah, we have this really fixed understanding of all these things that can oftentimes sabotage a lot of other things. You know, if you think about a lot of like these like kids in high school and like as a teenager, you need more sleep and sleep is going to help you do better in school. Yeah. And yet a lot of them are sleep deprived. And that just doesn't make sense, right? It's obviously, you know, not good, right?
Yeah.
And it's not actually helping anybody, right? But it's a kind of a mismatch of priorities and a clashing of priorities. That's really what it is. And oftentimes this societal, you know, here's what it is that we should focus on, the sort of societal expectations kind of win out over happiness, over health, being healthy, and over, you know, being able to actually really connect with yourself and what is it that I actually want and what is it that feels natural.
I feel like there's a holistic perspective that can really be helpful here, whereas like I feel like I've built a pretty good intuition, especially for like my free time,
right?
Like what to do. Like we went to China and we had a cousin who he only got like 4 hours of free time a week. And his summer break was literally 2 days because he went to summer school after that, where all devices were banned. And literally the whole 2 days he was just constantly on his phone playing this very, you know, basically the most immersive game you could get on a phone. And then
and all scrolling on TikTok
all the time. And I was like, I was so confused because he was like, no, I need to have fun. I need to make use of this free time that I have. But I was like, that is not the way I would make use of it. Like I wasn't feeling very good like playing hot cross buns on my phone. Like it was passive stimulation, and I get really easily like overstimulated.
Right.
But I think there are things that are so much more motivating and actually like make you feel happy.
We were asking him questions like, okay, let's say you had like, you know, a month of free time. Would you just try to maximize phone time? Time, to think like, because it kind of makes sense given like you're constantly stressed out in school, especially like in China, and the standards are so high and there's so much pressure that, okay, then you have 1 minute of free time, you need to just like be on your phone, right? But then are you actually thinking about your time management strategies with these different considerations in mind? Like one day I'm going to be out of school and I'm going to have to choose what I do with my time. If you just apply his model to that,
it's going to be maximize phone game time and scrolling on TikTok.
Which is just like, and we're kind of trying to point out to him like, hey, you kind of realize how if you scale this up, what's the conclusion?
What's the outcome?
Right. And I think that, but it's just kind of really hard to think about that outside of, because you're in the structure, and to try to give it a nuanced perspective, you kind of need to break out of that structure to experience what it's like, to realize, no, I need some way of thinking about this.
One podcast idea I actually had, we hadn't actually done this, but a podcast idea I had was like, for Halloween, I made my dad a wizard staff. And I was actually very surprised as to how, like, I hadn't had like a creative like craft project in a while. But that's something I used to do all the time.
Right.
Like all the time. I would just be looking forward to the time where I could go in my room and start making crafts. And I was really surprised and like happily surprised as to how much effect that actually had on me. Because, you know, making a little wizard staff, like that's something that I don't think is viewed as super like I didn't see it as very helpful and important. It was like one of the things where I'm like, okay, this kind of takes a backseat. I didn't really feel totally justified in doing it. It was kind of like my guilty pleasure. Right. I'm gonna make the staff.
Right.
But that the same day I started working on it, when I went to bed, I literally had an idea for a podcast that night, and I had trouble like coming up with ideas for podcasts, and then I had another idea for a Christmas present I could make for one of my family members, and then I felt inspired to like make food the next day,
right.
And it's something about that just kind of like sparked a lot of inspiration in me and motivation that playing hot cross buns on my phone did not. I feel like there are some things that I think we can view kind of in the same category as like
just
passive
dilly-dallying
entertainment
and
wasting time.
Yeah.
That actually like made me really happy and made me feel very like filled and like motivated.
And that's
inspired.
why I think that's part of why these things have to be coupled with a more nuanced way of how to approach life, because that's to go through what you did go through was that you had this understanding that being inspired is valuable. Right, feeling this positive motivation is valuable.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in such a fixed view of what it is that you're going to do the next day, then if you had inspiration for someone else, for something else, then that would just be considered distraction.
Yeah.
Right, and that's part of why I feel like there is this sort of understanding of how can I place value on these things, because if you have such a fixated view of what it is that my life is and what it is that I'm supposed to do, then you can't actually allow these things to actually guide you towards these great things, right? And that's why I think for me that's been really insightful in terms of this year trying to figure out a balance for that. Because at the beginning it can just feel like I'm just wasting so much time, what am I doing, you know, and to feel a lot of uncertainty as to how to place value on these things, because it is so uncertain.
But I think to build the intuition, you need to start like seeing that as something that's good and valuable. And you know, that's, I think the more I would in the past, like the times when I was really worried about routine and like I felt so bad about myself if I like slept in a little bit,
right,
or if I didn't get all the things done on my to-do list or something like that, and I was just obsessed with structure. That was when my off time was just completely just like all my willpower and motivation and energy was just gone. Like for like my
then you're much more likely to waste time.
My off time was just like watching YouTube and not like helpful YouTube. Like and like not helpful YouTube. And I feel like when and now I watch YouTube, but I'm not just watching YouTube, okay?
It's helpful YouTube.
It's helpful YouTube.
I swear.
Well, I mean, it's definitely more helpful than
I mean,
was.
there is so much that you can get out of these things. Like if something is giving you energy, is giving you motivation.
I have people that I'm inspired by that I want to emulate the example. And I watch those videos and I see those people, and when I'm done, I feel inspired, I feel motivated, I feel grounded. But literally now when I'm not doing that, I'll start to feel nauseous and overstimulated. And I think I feel a lot better about my free time and like my intuition around those things than I did in the past. And I think even and so I think that's something to work towards. That I haven't really heard a lot about. Maybe it's just like my bias and what I've heard about.
Well, I think a lot of it is also that because we have this mindset of I'm kind of filling myself as a vessel of inspiration and, you know, knowledge and experience so that I can then create something out of that. And we have so many avenues of doing that, where we have this podcast and we have so much freedom and we've done so many things that we have a basis of like, you know, I'm listening to music so I can create my own. It's not just like a one-way sort of thing. It's like I'm I'm seeing these people online who are really good at like, you know, we were talking earlier about how like the skill of like these talk show hosts of just helping someone feel comfortable and open up. And that's something that, you know, maybe I won't become a talk show host, but I can do that in my relationships. I can channel those skills. And being able to actually to think about it more broadly in terms of how it is that you add value to the world, because it isn't something that should ever be fixed, that should ever not allow you to take something that you're inspired by to inspire someone else with your creations, right? And I think that's the main problem, is that if you're not viewing it that way, it's really hard to have a broad, like, nuanced view of how to spend your time.
Yeah, I really like the vessel metaphor, because one time, I don't remember what the quote is from, but I saw a quote, and it was like, you can't pour from an empty vessel. Right. And I was like, that just made me feel very good, because I felt very validated by that. I also saw another quote that was, you can't buy happiness, but you can buy food, and that's basically the same thing. So,
and food is happiness, more specifically bread, as we already covered.
More specifically bread.
Well, and that's something, I think this was a Father Mike Schmidt's video where he was talking about how you don't want to be like, you can think about channeling good to other people through like a pipe, or you can think about it as an overflowing cup, and you want to be an overflowing cup, not a pipe, that it's just like, I get good and then I immediately, it's away, and then I feel sad, and then I, you know, and then it's not, like, you want to be overflowing with those sorts of things.
I'm just overflowing with amazing motivation and inspiration and just positive energy.
That's what you feel when you feel that somebody else has that, when they're filled with all those sorts of things, and it's contagious. And, and I think that part of it is also understanding you can't really do that in such a conscious, purely like, fixed sort of format of creating value, right? If you just have a defined job role, you can't overflow into your job, right? Like that's not how it works, right? Because it is so fixed, because it is so defined. But that's part of why I think, we did a talk at Renmin University, and we were talking to these college students about, you want to think about what is valuable, and to think about what is valuable, think about what you yourself value. And we value things like entertainment. We value the positive people in our life that give us motivation just because they seem so inspired. Right? We value those things. And so to think about that outside of the economy and outside of how do I make a living for myself just doesn't really make sense, because you are seeing that, like, those things are being monetized because people value them. And it can be hard to know how to monetize it. It can be hard to know practically how does this fit in. But that doesn't mean that it should be segregated off in terms of how we view our lives.
Because like I said before, like, making a wizard staff made me want to cook food. And like, when I eat good food, I feel more energized, and it gave me ideas for the podcast, and it just made me feel more motivated, which, the overall lesson is just that everyone should make wizard staffs. No, it's not. But you got to, you want to find those things that are energizing, and you feel like can, fill you up and, overflow out of your brain, and, whatever metaphor or anything you want to use.
And it's a nuanced understanding as to how do I structure my life to allow for that. And I think that a lot of what we've seen, of course, you first need to start with discipline. You first need to be like, okay, am I in control of myself before you go and let yourself reign free and like explore these things, right? But once you're at that point, you do want to give yourself the freedom to think about, how can I really manage all these things, all these options to allow for the best results, thinking about all the different goals that I might have in mind. And one of them, most importantly, should be, am I being fulfilled? Am I feeling happy? Like, am I going to look back on my life and think, oh, I was just sad and miserable, but I was productive, I got stuff done, or am I going to think, no, I spent my time well and I wasn't miserable while doing it. Right? Like and think about all the different things that you might want to optimize for, and to think about the balance in a way that is flexible, right? Because you can think about it, oh, I just plan all this thing, I have 15 minutes for being happy and then 15 minutes for doing this thing, right? That's not really how it works.
Being miserable. 15 minutes for being happy.
15 minutes for being miserable.
Right,
That's called the Pomodoro method.
Pomodoro method. Right. Yeah. And to not think about it like segregating all those things, because
Wow, this is brilliant.
guys, I found this amazing thing. Yeah. That really is how we approach a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And the Pomodoro method, it's like, amazing, enhance your productivity by 50x using this new strategy, right? And it's not a nuanced view of approaching things, right? And I think that that's part of how we can get to a point where we can find that natural balance is by allowing ourselves that freedom to understand what natural even means. You kind of have to be outside the context of some kind of contrived structure, because that's something I realized, was that when I was like in that sort of conscious mode and I was so strict in terms of the structure and stuff, I would think like, oh, how do I like relax and like rejuvenate? And the way that I was thinking about it just was so like insufficient to really actually get what I was looking for, which is I kind of felt like, no, something needs to be shaken up here.
Yeah.
But
I remember like we'd go on vacation sometimes. And then, well, like sometimes, like obviously we went on vacation. And then you would say like the day where we would leave was the day you felt like you were finally on vacation.
yeah, that kept happening because it like takes a little bit to get out of that and to even be able to know what freedom is. And oftentimes a lot of it is because we'll run from freedom because freedom is scary. Because, you know, to have all those choices in front of you, you're confronted with, what if I waste my time? What if I choose the wrong one?
Yeah.
Right. And so that is
it's hard
tough
to know.
And that's something we've been struggling this year, is like, oh, okay, am I wasting my time or am I actually doing something good? You know,
Am I a horrible person because I woke up late? Or am I not?
Right, yeah.
And then if you don't think if you think you're not a horrible person, even if you wake up late, then it's like, oh, I can wake up late every day. That's just wonderful.
Yeah. And so you want to think about, you know, how do I really establish that, you know, decision-making process, and to remind yourself of what do I value, right? Because oftentimes so many people, there's like an implied value structure in how we engage with each other. And oftentimes it's not the things that are the most important. It's not like, you know, really recognizing that what is most important is ultimately our long-term fulfillment, is ultimately our relationships. And oftentimes when you walk out the door, you just feel like people aren't acknowledging that these are valuable things in terms of how we approach life and how we approach each other. And that can be really hard because then, you know, it's already so uncertain enough to try to think, how am I spending my time? Is it valuable? But then if we don't have a shared understanding of the values and the goals that we're working towards, right, then that makes it even harder as well. But I do think that more and more people are having to confront these problems because more people are becoming, you know, self-employed or freelance or whatever, and having more creative work that they're doing. And a lot of what creative work means is that we need to think more nuanced and kind of from on a foundational level, what is it that we're trying to achieve here? What is valuable? So that we can think of all the different tools, all the different things that we can do to try to get there. And I think that ultimately is a more nuanced view of life. And that ultimately is a way in which we can find the most fulfillment.